Welcome, everybody, once again to the teams ahead of our round 6 clash against the Adelaide Crows in Adelaide this Saturday night, 7:35. It's 2 consecutive weeks now in Adelaide. Can we go 2 from 2? That is the question. Ollie, Evan, welcome back and welcome to our viewers. Feel free to comment away as we go, as always. I am very pumped, always a lot happier to be here after a win, of course. So happy to talk plenty of positives from the game. Really thrilled to get the win. I think, Port Adelaide have been a bit of a bogey side for us, maybe minus last year when we finally got the win. So onwards and upwards. Adelaide, I definitely consider an ongoing bogey team. So a little bit more nervous probably coming up against the Crows. Ollie and Evan, what are your thoughts before I pull the teams up?
Finally got to come on here and talk about a win. I have just seen the first comments, probably remiss not to mention the Adelaide Football Club and Jordan Dawson's probably in everyone's thoughts at the moment. So hopefully they do something pre-game just to show a bit of respect for them, because Dawson's taken some time off, understandably. I unfortunately missed a lot of the game, but listening to it in the car on the radio, the call on, I think it was SEN I was listening to, was very biased Port Adelaide. I don't know if it was a gather round thing but it was just seeming like Port Nuffies talking. Like Ken Hinkley was on there, but usually I feel like he's a bit better than that. But I was a bit worried third quarter after checking the score at the end of my basketball game. We were up by 30 odd points, and then I'm driving home and I'm like, they're coming back. Of course they're coming back. But we pulled it out in the end.
Yeah, it was a bit of a rainy and stressful game throughout portions there. But, we did what we weren't able to do against the Lions and hold on to that win. So that's a bit of a positive. And as you mentioned, Alana, they were and have been a bogey team. So I reckon one more win against them, and we can probably say that that's off our back, but not quite yet. We'll see how we do against the Dogs coming up. But it was good to have the win and to have some real heroics out of it. It wasn't the cleanest game, but there was plenty of heart, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of positives to take away, and I've noticed there's been a little bit of negativity surrounding us, and for whatever reason, there's always bias whenever we play well. It's always, something else that's the cause. It's never because the Saints have actually come out and played well. There's always some other reason, whether it's the umpiring or whatever it is. It'd be nice to get some credit when it's due, but for some reason, I just think that that's never going to be the case. So I guess we'll just have to pump up our own tyres and do the job for everybody else. But just quickly, Ollie, thanks for touching on Dawson. That's obviously really tragic news for Adelaide and the football community, and obviously his family and friends. So really devastating news there. So I'll just, on that note, bring up the teams, because obviously that's a big key out for Adelaide. But I'll just get this ready so I can share it with everybody and we can have a closer look. All right, so I'll just look at the ins and outs there before I pull up the lineups, which is what I usually like to do. So as you can see, they bring in Luke Pedlar, Charlie Edwards, Hugh Bond and Jordan Butts. And then they lose Mitchell Hinge and Jake Saligo, both through injury. So I think Saligo is probably a key out there. And then, as we touched on, obviously Jordan Dawson and James Borlase. And we bring in Liam Stocker while losing Alex Taru, managed, according to that. So interesting. I'll get your first thoughts on those ins and out. Any surprises for you both?
It's probably a bit of a surprise to see the Stocker Taru change, but we were talking about it beforehand, and one, just glad to see Stocker back into the side, and with the back-to-back in Adelaide, it probably makes a bit of sense that at least one of the younger players needed a bit of a break to come home and get a proper rest in between games. So hopefully we're tall enough down back, but we'll definitely be good to get Stocker's intensity back.
Yeah, completely agree on Stocker. I think I don't know. I haven't had a chance to watch too much of the game back, so not 100% sure how much we missed him. I did think it was a bit silly that after playing AFL, he played VFL in the week and then got the concussion, but past now. I did wonder how many of the players would have gone home, family-wise. I thought maybe Bradley Hill would have gone home, maybe some of the young players like you mentioned, Evan. So, I mean, he's a young guy. He's played every game this year, so I think we've got every right to rest him, and Dockers are good in anyway.
Yeah, definitely. From what I heard, I think it was players who had young families, and then, I think also a couple of youngsters as well. So I don't mind this time of year, and like you both have sort of said with the back-to-back games in Adelaide, that is pretty tough. So probably timely for Taru to get a bit of a rest. I think as well, like he's been competitive and coming along nicely, but it's probably the right time, if any, for him to have a breather. But I will say, getting straight into the midfield, I just did want to say there was one player I thought who looked really good after having the bye, and that was Mateus Filippo. He sort of copped a bit of scrutiny, probably sometimes unjustified, really, given his age and his injuries that he's had to come through. But I thought I just wanted to quickly shout out his game because I thought it was a big, big step in the right direction to have 5 scoring shots, probably could have nailed a couple more than he did. Kicked the sealer. That made my day, made me happy for him. Really thrilled for him to do that in Adelaide, in his hometown as well, against his old team growing up. So, really, really thrilled there for him. And there's probably a few others that we'll talk about as we continue. But, I thought I'd just sort of shout out to him first off. What did you think of his game? And is there anyone else? I guess we'll touch on the midfield as we always kind of touch on them first. If you want to shout out to anyone else in the midfield or get behind the poo as well.
He loves a goal, doesn't he? He just loves
a
goal. He Higgins will run away and celebrate, but Philippa will just stand there and pull his jumper and scream, and it's just so nice to watch someone with that passion when he gets on the scoreboard. The biggest one for me was probably Hugo Garcia. I think he had 10 clearances, which is massive. So he's really coming along this year. Now he's sort of been released a little bit more. And then I know it was a wet and scrappy game. So it kind of I don't know how much of a proper, I guess, if it's a really valid thing to be talking about. But Naz had 9 tackles, which I thought was big. Something he doesn't normally do, and Box had 9 tackles as well. So obviously wet and scrappy, so there's going to be more tackles, but at the same time it shows they really grit in hard. I think Naz had one tackle at halftime or something, 2 tackles, so he really dug in the second half, which was good to see, especially when he was being tagged so heavily.
Yeah, 100%. Like that, the tackle pressure from a number of the players was great. And as you say, I really like the way Matty celebrates. He brings everyone sort of towards him. He's got a gravity for his celebration where people just run at him rather than running away. So it's great to see him have that form. And he'll probably be, both him and Garcia will be incredibly important against the Crows because they've got so many of those midfielders out. They're going to be missing the midfield minutes of both Dawson and Saligo. So that's going to be a lot that we're really going to have to take over. And hopefully that's an area where we can dominate a bit because they haven't had the consistency of last year. I'll also throw out just Maxwell hasn't had the year that it looked like in his first 2 weeks. But both him and Silvani, just the way they run at a contest, they're just absolute wrecking balls. They do not look like they're ever going to stop. Hall a number of times just ran at the ball and just was able to get a fist and tap it forward and get the clearance. Even if he doesn't get a number to that, the toughness of that was really important on a wet and rainy night.
Absolutely. And I reckon Garcia has definitely been our most improved so far this year. And I feel like he's gone really under the radar, maybe not so much as a Saints perspective, like from a Saints fan, but generally in the AFL world, I still haven't really heard him spoken about too much. And even that goal he kicked was brilliant, considering even just the weather alone to kick that ball so cleanly like he did. I think that's really underrated. That was an incredible goal and a neat little sort of passage of play that he tied it up very nicely. So, yeah, big shout out to him. And also, his game time's still not big either. So to have 10 clearances with his time on ground is very impressive. And he just keeps building week on week. I'm also really glad you touched on the physicality of the game, because I did want to bring up that as well to get your thoughts, because there's sort of been a little bit of talk how teammates aren't necessarily flying the flag, particularly when it came to Naz. Early on, he was getting a lot of attention, a lot of jumper pulls and gave away like a free early. And then I actually think the umpires did okay in managing that. And, he ended up getting on the end of a few frees there. But I've heard talk during the week that his teammates aren't really helping him out in those situations. And I just wanted to get your thought, because I can see both sides of that. So, yeah, I wouldn't mind discussing that further.
Yeah, I'm always more on board with how you help them in the contest when the ball's actually in play. Like a really good team like Hawthorn are doing some really exciting stuff at the moment with blocks off the play during like a forward stoppage that allows that danger player like a Nick Watson to actually get the ball and not be immediately tagged. I'll always be more of a fan of how do you get people involved by just being present in a contest rather than what you're doing when the ball's dead or after a goal's been scored. Because so often the free kick goes sort of against the person that reacts, whether that's a teammate running in or if it's, Naz had some issues. I think was it Dunkley that was really getting around him, and Naz sort of pushed back against him, and Naz gave the free kick away because it's the second impact that gets seen. So sometimes you just got to fly the flag for a teammate, but a lot of the time I just prefer it if we're working for each other when the ball's in play.
And the good thing with Naz is, I guess, that we can send him forward and he can still kick 2 or 3 goals forward if he needs to, if he's not having the impact in the midfield. And we can send an equally impactful midfielder like Sinclair or Hall in there to run through. Like, we've got Philippou and Garcia on the bench and Hunter Clark, who will all likely run through there during the game. So, if it's not working, we've got avenues to get away from it. I think having Naz as a be-all and end-all is quite dangerous. So, like you say, like during play is the best time to help these guys get free and get their hands on the ball, because, when the game's not going, I don't think Naz is the kind of guy that it gets under his skin too much. Unless he does start going back, then you kind of go, all right, now it's time to step in. But if it's not getting under his skin and affecting his psyche coming into the next contest, I think it's not too much of a big deal until, like you say, until the game's going, and you want to get the ball in his hands, because he's probably our best ball user. So whether that's at full forward or in the midfield doesn't really bother me, to be perfectly honest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I mean, at times I'd agree with Guy here that we need to see more of it. And I probably thought of that at stages throughout the game, thinking like, oh, come on and defend Naz a little bit more. But then when Butters got him with that really good tackle on the boundary and went after him, I was actually quite pleased to see Windy go in and, throw him off him. And I think we were just a bit smarter how we went about it. Like Port were, I don't know if feral's the right word, but I'm going to describe them as that. They just...
Undisciplined?
Yeah, thank you. A nicer word for it. And I think, we were just the more disciplined team, which was really nice to see. And, Windy was physical when he needed to be, but we just put our head over the ball and got the job done. And, we weren't whinging at the umpires, and probably a few Port fans will be saying, well, no, you had nothing to whinge about. But I think that was the point. I think perhaps umpires are only human sometimes, and Port probably just went about that the wrong way, their players. And I actually think that went against them in terms of winning free kicks and things. So I was certainly happy to get on the right side of the umpires for once, especially over in Adelaide. So I'll take it. But yeah, in terms of the midfield too, and I guess I kind of wanted to touch a little bit on Mason Wood, and not that he's a midfielder as such, but just kind of on what his role in the team is at the moment, because he sort of floats around. And for mine, I noticed him in the first quarter or half, and then I forget he's playing. And I just, kind of wondered where you guys think he's at. He's obviously closing out his career now, and he's more in there for leadership. But are you expecting him a little bit more from him during the game, or?
Yeah, potentially, particularly because for me, he's at his best when he's able to get a really solid contested mark down the wing. This probably wasn't the week for that because, it was so wet and rainy throughout the whole thing, and there'd already been 4 games at the ground. So it's not all that flash. But in general, you'd probably be hoping to see either a few more goals from him or a bit more of that midfield connection when we're bouncing off halfback. Now that I think on it, though, we are adapting to the modern game and the forward handball style, which is important with how scores are being generated this year, which doesn't necessarily give him a huge amount of space because he's not that forward handball player. He's the contested mark. So, but potentially we're just adjusting to a game plan that doesn't involve him down the ground so much, and he needs to adapt to being a more permanent forward because the way we're moving the ball.
Yeah, I think he's equally valuable. It's, I don't want to sit on the fence too much, but I feel like he always goes forward and provides something, whether it's another target, so like I seem to say it every week. So he stopped kicking it on Jack Higgins' head because it doesn't work. But, if Sharman and Owens aren't having a great game, you can go forward and clunk 1 or 2 here and there, or at least provide the contest a little more. And equally, if it's the right conditions, can go up the wing and be that link. I don't know. I think it depends on the specific circumstance in the game as to where we play him. He's listed a half forward this week. Whether he plays just a high half forward role, I'm not sure. I think he can be equally impactful anywhere he can take a contested mark. He does try and adapt and get that, like the forward handball you were talking about. He does try and work that out. And I think it's been successful a few times this year, just in our link-up play. But he's probably not, our number one option for, I suppose, that link in the chain if we're not going aerially.
Yeah, definitely. I think I definitely like him in the forward line now more than ever. And that brings me to wanting to discuss Rowan Marshall. And I can see Hawkeye, or Hawkey, I get this wrong every time, has also brought up Marshall. And don't want to speak too soon, but Ross did mention King's name during the week, saying he was only a few weeks away. And I was like, ooh. But yeah, Rowe, to me, I don't know, he's just not really finding where he fits in the team at the moment. I think he's kind of running around a little bit lost. Some people say that he's checked out and on his way to Geelong already, or whether it's just literally that, TDK's come in and I was expecting him to spend a lot more time forward, but that really just hasn't been the case. So I'm quite curious, when King is ready, fingers, everything crossed, does someone like a Marshall make way given the start to the season he's having? What are your thoughts?
I mean, Ross said in his presser today that they love the double ruck, so I don't think he'll get dropped. It will be an interesting dynamic. Maybe Marshall or King could play higher up the ground, so be more of a leading target, which, to be honest, I like from Max King because I feel like he's one of those forwards that's more reliable from 30 metres plus away from goal. I agree that I would like to see Marshall stay forward, bring him into the game. Not all the time, obviously, because he's playing our second ruck, but if he's forward, we can hit him up. He can be another target, and he's not there only 25% of the time. Although at the same time, I do like how they sort of roam together. I think that works well around the ground because TDK can be he's quick, he's agile, so he can be a link in a chain as well. I think it's all about figuring out which dynamic works best for the club and is going to, I suppose, complement our structure the most in game week by week.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. That's accidentally snuck into what my question was going to be for the week, was how Ro's doing, but that's
Um,
I'll find something else. But I'd agree. I think the double ruck with the current rule setup is the way to go. We saw there are other parts of the game, but the Hawks with both Meek and Reeves dominating a first game ruckman, sort of, it is really making a difference to have those two rucks set up. Whether that's necessarily Marshall in the future, because I think he has. I don't know if the first 5 games have shown his forward craft that we were really, really hoping for.
mm,
We'll sort of see how that goes. See if the King dual role can make that work. Maybe even something a bit like how the Hawks run with. I'm blanking on names now. Gunston is a really, really deep forward while we're trying to get people recovered. So we'll see how it goes there. But it might be that we run 2 rucks with Dodson next year and we see what happens. But definitely 2 rucks for now is the way to go.
Yeah, I tend to agree, and maybe this is a nice way to segue into talking about the forward line. Did want to touch on we actually had 20 odd less inside 50s than Port Adelaide, but did a much better job of converting, which was nice and a little unusual. That was very nice to see, and honestly, I think it was mainly that third quarter where things fell apart a little bit there. And interestingly, I heard today we're the only team that's yet to win a third quarter this year, the premiership quarter. So make of that what you will. But hopefully tables are turning, because we're certainly coming out of the blocks well enough. But yeah, I thought it was positive signs from the forward line. I already touched on Pooh already, but it was nice that he got on the end, had a couple of set shots. As I said, could have kicked more. Lucky enough, got the sealer. But also really loved Silvani milking that 50 to perfection and then nailing that goal. We pretty much clinch victory. So that was really sweet and a really nice moment for him. I'll touch more on him, I suppose, when we do the backline discussion a little bit later. But yeah, how did you think the forward line sort of worked, and what do you think worked well for us?
There are definitely wins. The fact that we got on the scoreboard in that first quarter, exactly what we didn't do against the Lions, is a real good start. And 12 goals from 40 inside 50s or less than 40 is a good return, considering. And we're still averaging over 80 points this year so far, which is a step above where we've been the last couple of years. So it's progress. I'm just still worried about how Higgins and Sharman and Owens are they're not getting past or 1 goal a game, if that, form at the moment. So they're still not really in goal kicking form regularly. It's great that we're getting goals from our midfielders and our mid forwards, but would be great to see the designated forwards regularly get back on that scoreboard, because I'm a bit worried there.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. I was looking at the stats before, and like you say, the designated forwards are not really having as much of an impact, which I think it's got positives that we can see players from other positions on the ground being able to hit the scoreboard. But, in a game, especially against a better side, you do want to see the forwards that are, full-time forwards actually having more of an impact. I did want to touch on Dan Butler, only because I don't quite know what his role is supposed to be. If he's a pressure forward and that's it, then he's probably doing fine. He had 7 tackles on the weekend, but he doesn't seem to be doing much else. He doesn't stand out to me during a game. He'll chase, he'll put pressure on, but is he in the team to be a small forward, or is he in the team to literally just tackle and have tackle pressure? I don't know. And I feel like at some stage, it's probably worth having someone else in his place who's going to provide a little bit more offensively, because I don't know. We've got our small forwards, we've got Ryan, we've got Higgins. So if he's not sort of giving them some respite, it just seems like a position we could use better.
Should maybe not quite at the moment, perhaps. We've got
that's true.
some other situations there. But you are right. He did have, I think it was 20 plus pressure acts. So, and it was visible at times at the end of the game there. But how much are you sort of paying the guy to be there just for the pressure acts, as you say? Can't we get that from someone else? But that's maybe a conversation that disappears if Higgins is kicking goals as well, though.
Yeah, and ideally it'd be Liam Henry's spot. There's been a couple of comments about Liam Henry. He's only a couple of weeks away, but he probably, similar to Max King, needs that conditioning period in the VFL to get up to standard again. But ideally, we get Liam Henry back into that spot because he's probably more exciting than Butler is.
Yeah, good thing you raised Butler, because I honestly forgot he was playing for 3 quarters, and then he bobbed up with those big pressure acts in the last quarter. And I was like, oh yeah, Butler's playing. So I don't know how many those sort of players you can carry in your team. Probably not too many, I would have thought. And there were a couple of other players I thought were quiet too. Like even Wilson had a quiet game. I did think he had his moments where he was clean with the footy, but I just probably would like to see him get more of it. And we already touched on Hall, but yeah, I think if Henry's fit, he probably does take Butler's spot. And then depending on matchups, potentially when King comes in, Butler makes way as well. Obviously, very different sizes, but Matt here has said, I feel like we have a good mix of small forwards and talls. And I do agree, and the problem with King in the past is that we become King-centric. So King helps straighten us up, and he's obviously great to have in the team. But I do agree that when you have that one sole target, become very predictable. So I probably have liked that this has caused us to be a little bit more unpredictable and maybe hard for opposition to match up on us because we don't have that standout. But it does mean that, your Sharmans and Owens are probably, having to cover and play against better opponents than we'd like them to. I still don't want to get my hopes on King just yet. Let's wait till he gets through a VFL game, I reckon.
Still not speak about him at all.
That's right. Not too early. Well, we might move on to the back line now. Given the discrepancy in inside 50s, it was 21 more inside 50s that our back line had to deal with. So I think, once again, they are just incredibly solid, led by Wilkie, as always, but really did want to shout out Silvani, who, in my eyes, had his best game for the club. Mr. Reliable, especially in that third quarter when, I was really getting nervous and getting a bit white line fever in front of the TV. Silvani, for mine, was that really calm presence, just goes about his business, gets the job done. As I said, very reliable. Him and Wilkie are becoming a really solid duo. So I guess for mine, they were the key standouts for mine. I thought Sinclair, if anything, actually had a below average game for his standards. What did you think of the back line as a whole? And what do you think now Stocker brings back into that?
All I wrote down was Wilkie and Silvani and Taru will feed families. So I know Taru's not playing and he might go forward, but it's just such a great combo. Like Wilkie's probably all Australian and best and fairest at the moment, I reckon. So Silvani's probably been the best out of our recruits so far this year as well.
Yep, 100%. Not sure if anyone watched the First Crack preview yesterday, but I really liked what Joey did, doing a bit of a surprise comparison between Josh Battle and Silvani.
Oh, cool.
Silvani is ahead on every stat so far. So, and he mentions the fact that, we picked up Silvani. He's in that role, doing better than Battle for now. And we got Taru as that compensation pick. So we've built that backline in response to that. And hate to see him go, but we've recovered. And while Port Adelaide don't have the most dangerous forward line outside of Georgiades and Francis, you give them 20 more inside 50s and you're going to have a little bit to worry about. So they were pretty heroic back there and held ground. Still not sure how I feel about Carroll back there, so I'm glad Stocker's back, but we'll see how it goes. They're holding holding their end of the bargain, that's for sure.
Who did you mean by Francis? Oh, Jason Horne-Francis.
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say, I was so baffled for a second. I was trying to figure it out.
So, yes.
Oh,
yeah.
That's fine.
Another
That's
one I
fine.
don't want to talk about. Nearly won in the game. He's a bloody good player. But nicely done, Joey. I'm glad he did that little analysis there and comparison, and Silvani's come out on top. So that's a win there. But yeah, speaking of the back line, they've got their work cut out for them this week for sure. Adelaide's forward line is quality. They've got very dangerous players who rotate through the midfield and forward line. And that's kind of where I wanted to touch on Stocker and also Windy. I think it's probably become a bit of a discussion point with Windy most weeks, but I'm wondering if he follows like someone like a Rankin and just goes with him no matter if he's in the forward line or not, or how we go about it, because obviously we didn't probably pay Horne-Francis maybe the respect he deserved, and it nearly come back to bite us, but thankfully we got the chocolate, so it doesn't matter too much. But who do you consider Adelaide's most dangerous players? Are you wanting like a Windy Stocker to take out whoever that may be? What are your sort of key matchups, I suppose? And I'm going to tie it in with defenders, because for mine, I just think that's where this game's probably won and lost, with how Adelaide's forwards go about it, and if we can shut them down.
Yeah, I'm glad they're not running with Fogarty. That would definitely stretch us very far. So I'm glad he's out for now. So in this case, I think there's a bit of the Phil Thorpe effect. He's not had a great year so far, but it feels like the exact kind of game where he'll stand up and try and kick a bag on us. So hopefully, I'm not sure how we line up against him necessarily, especially when we're worried about Tex. So you're right, that's where they'll really stretch us, because the rest of their lines, they're struggling with injury, but they've not had as good a run as last year. So, Phil Thorpe will be an issue. And I think you're right with Windy or Stocker, keeping an eye on both Rochelle and Rankin. They're going to have a lot more midfield time with their outs this week. So got to be really careful to keep them accountable because they're dangerous all across the ground.
Yeah, you're both spot on with the forward line. Like, it is just, I look at it and go, that's the most dangerous forward line to comp at the moment. Mm-hmm. There's no weak links, I don't think. Zach Taylor's probably the weakest link, but he's still pretty dangerous for a young guy. Mm-hmm. I did want to keep in mind, though, that considering our struggles with key forwards, Nick Murray and Jordan Butts have been really good this season. Butts has been out with concussion, I believe, but coming back into the side, they've both been really good. They mark everything, punch everything. They get basically they get there. They're not going to get out-led a lot of the time or out-muscled in a contest. And if one of them does, the other one will be there. And Josh Worrell's a great distributor of the ball as well. So we've got our work cut out for sure. Like, I think it would be worth keeping a Marshall down full forward a little bit more than usual, just because of their strengths in the key positions. But yeah, their midfield, which would usually be their strongest line, I think, is their weakest line at the moment. That's obviously situational, but still, they're going to really make it difficult for us.
Definitely my biggest concern. And along with Guy, I am also worried about Tex. No matter what kind of form this guy is in, and I say it every week, there's always one player who destroys the Saints. I said it about Horne-Francis, and look what he did. Please don't let Tex kick 6 goals, because just no. But I did want to ask, given we haven't brought in Howard, which I thought we may have potentially purely just because Tex and Phil Thorpe are both beasts, and Tex in particular is very physical and he likes to give his opponents a really hard time, which has me worried because we just don't have a big-bodied key defender and many big bodies at all, to be fair. Like, we've touched on our forward line as well, not having that big presence. So who gets the matchup on Tex? We've obviously got Silvani and Wilkie. So which way around do you see those two. And noting as well, Howard's not even emergency, so unlikely that he will be playing.
I think I would go Silvani on Tex, just because I think he's a little more mobile than Wilkie is.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. As I said before the call, we'd probably worry about the ruck work as well, the way that Tex often does that forward rucking. Um, Obviously, Adelaide running with a bit more of a junior ruck force with McAndrew in there and Finbar Maley potentially running some of it as well. So hopefully we can use both our rucks defensively as well to match up there so that Tex isn't getting those, just clean disposals out of the forward contest ruck and kicking goals from a standstill. So, but I think you're right in general. I'd go Silvani to Tex and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree. And just quickly, I noticed a lot earlier on, someone did bring up that there's been rumours that Naz won't get up this game, which is hopefully not the case. But if it was, we've got our emergencies there in Hasty, O'Connell, and Tauru. Of those three, who would you pick to replace Naz? Hopefully not.
Probably depends what aspect that we're trying to really replace. I think Hasty for his ball use might be the way we go there, but then are we a bit too short in the back line? I'd probably try to push Taru, who's still listed as an emergency there, because then we still replace that capacity as a bit of a swingman forward and back, like Naz has been doing, and might give us a bit more of that height that we're missing as far as we go defensively, specifically against this squad.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, obviously, no one wants to see Naz as a laid out, but I suppose the obvious answer is Hasty to play the same role that Naz might play off half back, and you can move someone around. You can move Sinclair into the midfield or something similar. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like if we decide to have a bigger body, they'll go O'Connell, only because Taru being managed makes me think he's probably already gone back to Melbourne, or he will be coming back to Melbourne. So, I mean, if I had to pick, I'd probably pick Hasty, but I wouldn't be surprised if O'Connell came in just to have a little bit more size.
Yeah, my first thoughts would have been Hasty, but I do like your points there, Evan. So Taru might be a good one to come in too, but it's no easy task to come in and replace Naz, whoever it is. So hopefully it's not on the cards, but I guess we'll see. I kind of wanted to move on to our keys to winning. We've kind of touched on the opposition view a little bit. I did just quickly want to raise Ben Keys and Neil Bullen as well, because I feel like those two can also be dangerous, and Keys always seems to bob up against us too, and they're just another couple of players who add to that sort of dynamic forward line they've got there. And I think that is making me very happy that Fogarty's not out there, Evan, as you mentioned, because yeah, he often can bob up too. So they are just full of really dangerous players who are capable of anything on their day. And I think it's been David King, but he has had some really good calls with Rankin the last few weeks, saying he's due to bob up, and then he bobs up. And I hope he keeps his mouth shut if he's not commentating our game, because I don't need any Rankin moments. Thanks. So on that, did you have any other key matchups or opposition views you want to share before we move on to our keys to winning?
Yeah, I think it's a good point to mention with Neil Bullen and Keys there, because so far this year they've been a really high pressure opponent, the way they're able to really keep the contest moving and high pressure across the ground. And those two that you mentioned are the ones that are really great at turning that intense pressure into a goal out of nowhere sort of thing, just to really pop up. And the way Keys can kick a goal from all sorts of the places, even the ones that don't get considered goals by the goal umpire. But, he's good value. But in general, I think the most important thing for us is just punishing their midfield. We didn't get the most out of it last game, but we've had a really good clearance run so far. So they're missing names. Don't let Rochelle and Rankin find their sort of midfield strength and just really take them to the cleaners with both centre clearance and contest around the ground. And hopefully we can make the most of where they're lacking right now.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's a very sound take, as always, from you, Evan. Nothing new from me other than the defence. I think that was my sort of key is, I think Woody said it somewhere in one of his messages, to limit their forward chances. So, because they're so dangerous.
Up his comment before, is this?
I think so. I think that's the one. Yeah. But yeah, like if it won't go well if we let them get repeat inside 50 after repeat inside 50. Need to be strong and then move the ball with intent out of defence, because they will pounce on you, especially if we allow them high inside 50 numbers. You saw although it ended up being a relatively close game against Carlton, Rochelle kicked 3 goals in the first quarter. So they only need a little sniff and they'll pounce. So got to be strong and solid in defence.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a game I'm not as confident going into. Just overall on paper, Adelaide to me are a lot stronger than Port Adelaide. And, Port Adelaide have their superstars in Horne-Francis and Butters as well. But besides that, it kind of drops, whereas I consider Adelaide a lot more even across the whole field. But then they have that advantage of their forward line. So that's a big key to winning, to matching them there. But I also did want to say I think composure is a big one, and going into 3/4 time against Port Adelaide with only that 8-point advantage, to come out the way we did. A lot of people said that, we had a poor fourth quarter, but I actually thought we were quite mature almost in how we came about that and really slowed it down and just made sure Port didn't get a sniff. And I thought, we were the team that come out and did kick the 2 goals. Port got a cheap late one in the very late stages. So I actually thought that showed a lot of growth. And, I touched on earlier in the year about my 5 C's, and composure was one of them. And I don't know if this is composure as such, but just a maturity in the club to kind of believe that they could get the job done, because, we were losing these games to Adelaide and Collingwood. So it was a step in the right direction for mine. So yeah, I think just keeping with Adelaide, we all know history against Adelaide. They are similar to the Bulldogs. So really got to stop them. I think we've come a long way in our early starts, so that will go a long way to defending Adelaide, because last year the game was pretty much done and dusted at quarter time. So yeah, we need to stay with them and get closer to playing 4 quarters. Obviously no team's going to play 4 quarters 100%, but I guess reducing those quiet periods that we tend to have. But Evan, did you manage to find a new question before we get tips and margins, or are you happy to go with
I can throw out one that we definitely did last year as well, but I'll throw it out, but in a more positive light. I think Wilkie is having the season of his life, and Sinclair's had some really good matches as well. And coming out and having that consistency as captains has been great, and they seem to be really clear communicators. But I think we saw some heroic moments from players last week as well. So in 3 or 4 years, when sort of Wilkie's winding down with his career, have you spotted someone in the team that so far this year has cemented themselves in your eyes as skipper material when we're really making premiership runs, hopefully?
Good question. I think Philip is the obvious answer. I think we all like to see him be a captain in the future, and I think he's shown that he can be. But I think to go a bit left of field, I think Marcus Windhager is a great leader.
Still mine.
Damn, sorry. He kind of strikes me as a not the same player as Jaron Geary, but the one where you go, oh, he's the captain? Like, as a fan of another club. But internally, we rate him so highly as a leader and as a player on field. That's probably to go away from the obvious. That's what I'd go with.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've said it several times that Windy has, he reminds me a lot of Luke Ball for whatever reason. Just the way he goes about it. He's hard, he's tough. He does sort of go under the radar a little bit. I mean, mind you, Ball didn't necessarily go under the radar, but just one of those, no BS type players, puts his head under the ball, flies the flag for his teammates. Just he really leads out there. But then when you speak of Filippo, I just not only on field but listening to him post game, he has just got such a quality head on his shoulders. I love listening to him. I think he likes to talk too, which I think is good in a leader. He just to me just speaks future captain. Obviously, I know that people want to see more from him, and probably you're calling it too early, but obviously you've brought him up too, Ollie. So we're both seeing things in him there that. Speak leader. So yeah, I'd
he
love
also
to
speaks
see.
really well. Just
Yeah.
Yeah, I do really like Filippo's communication, and as I mentioned earlier, his gravity that he just brings the players sort of with him towards him, both to celebrate but also to energize them. I think a name that's popped up a little bit in the chat is Max Hall, though. I don't necessarily know if he's got that communication. But it would be an amazing story that they could sort of keep within the club of, that mid-season pickup that nearly got missed and came in from the country, I think, and just leads through sheer will kind of thing. So I think we've got a couple of really solid heads and communicators and people that try with everything. So it's a good space to be in. And they can develop the next couple of years as players under the Wilkie just leading the way full flight.
Yeah, totally. I think it's a good discussion, and it's nice to even throw Garcia in the mix there. He's got a few shout outs. I might just quickly shout out a few comments here of what a few of the fans would like to see. We've got Sharman kicking a bag of 4. We've got Owens kicking a bag of 5. Got his kicking boots on, which is nice. Bonus. I'd like to see, it's been a while since one of our forwards has kicked a bag this year. I can't even remember that really happening. Has anyone kicked more than 3 goals this year? That's a good little question.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I doubt it.
Yeah, so that we're due. And Liam Ryan is also due to take Mark of the Year, so that would be very nice too. So, I think, like I said, a bit nervous about this game. We don't go too well against Adelaide, but we are playing very well interstate. That's where we've got both our wins, and obviously just one in Adelaide. So, onwards and upwards. Could be another win on the cards, 2 in a row. Be nice to get 2 in Adelaide and set ourselves up nicely. We've got West Coast and Carlton coming up at home, so it'd be nice to get another away win. On that, what are your tips and margins?
Just quickly, Max Hall kicked 4 against Melbourne. I think he's the only rucker to have kicked more than 3 this year. It's just, obviously I'm going to pick St Kilda, but in all seriousness, with Adelaide's out, I do think it'll be a close game. We're probably going in with a little more confidence. We've been in Adelaide for a week. Hopefully the weather holds up. If the weather holds out, I think it'll be a close game. And I've gone Saints by 3.
I hate being the villain. But anyways, I think the best part of this is that we can absolutely see ways that we can win, genuine game plans, performances that lead to a victory against a team that came first last year. You never want to mock the minor premiers. So we can see a way forward, but I'm still going to tip Adelaide by 3 points because I reckon they're just so stacked in the talls that it's going to be really tough for us to minimise them.
Yes, unfortunately, Evan, I think I'm agreeing with you. I think Adelaide had a bit of a funny start to the year, and funnily enough, Porter actually above them on the ladder by a percentage, but there you go. So I think, unfortunately, I don't think we quite match it, but I'm so happy to be proven wrong. But I'm going to go the Crows by 10 points. And honestly, if we can keep it close, and I hate honourable losses, so I don't want to go there. But yeah, maybe I'll just hope I'm wrong and we get the win. I'll just leave it there. Okay, well, I might wrap it up there. We've got it's always a bit of a blockbuster tonight with Carlton v Pies. So I guess everyone's probably keen to see which team they're going to hate the least Pies for that game. So it's Pies for mine. Go Pies. But thanks, Evan and Ollie, as always, for the chat. Really enjoyed it. Always much better after a win. Lots of positivity, lots to talk about. And lots of comments coming through. So thanks, as always, to everybody for contributing and tuning in. As always, go you mighty Saints.
Go Saints.
Go Saints.